the person that gave us the information that really changed everything was hiding, did not want to talk to me. In fact, called the police on me. And I got in there and convinced her to speak with me. She met me in a swimming pool parking lot super early in the morning and talked to me for an hour and a half. And the information she gave me was absolutely critical and saved the client $9.5 million.
This is Courtroom Stories and Tactics by RVA Trial Lawyers, hosted by Sharif Gray and Niall Abuzaki.
All right, before we get into the episode, I want to take a minute and introduce you guys to a friend and colleague, Sally Tierney. Sally works as a professional investigator based in Northern Virginia, but handles cases all over. I've had the privilege of working a case with her not too long ago. Sally, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you guys do?
Thank you, Sharif. So Clear Path Forward is the firm, and we do investigations for attorneys for criminal, personal injury, civil, by doing an extremely thorough investigation on every single case, and we add value for the attorney.
Thanks, Sally. And for people who want to reach you, how can they get a hold of you?
They can call us at Clear Path Forward, 703-350-2073. That's 703-350-2073.
All right, we're back. And today we've got my friend Sally Tierney joining us. Sally is a professional investigator, works throughout Virginia, throughout D.C., soon Maryland, right? But based up in Alexandria. So Sally and I met, I want to say about a year ago at this point. Sounds right. I remember you'd sent me a few emails, and I said, and then we had a call, and I said, you know what? I'm going to think of you. Like if a case comes in and we need your help, and I promise you I'll think of you. And then lo and behold, not too long after that, a case came in, and I was like, well, we need someone's help with this.
That's
right. And so Sally got the call, and Sally helped us with that case. But I think more significantly, in terms of me getting to know Sally, I am a very, proud and I hope people would consider an active member of the National Crime Victim Bar Association. And Niall and I actually went down to their annual convention, their annual meeting in Orlando this past year and spoke on jury selection. And guess who else was there? It was Sally Tierney. And so we got to know her there. Sally is a professional investigator, and I emphasize professional, and handles not just cases involving survivors, victims of things of horrendous crimes like sexual assault, on the third party suits, the personal injury cases and things of that nature, but also handles personal injury cases that stretch the gamut, right? But in addition to personal injury, also does quite a bit of help on the criminal side, especially with criminal defense lawyers. So Sally, really excited to have you. Why don't you take a minute or so, introduce yourself, and let's get into it.
Thank you. It's really an honor to be here. I really appreciate it. My name's Sally Tierney. I own Clear Path Forward. It's an investigation firm, and I've had that for 5 years. I've been a professional investigator for 6, and I'm thrilled to be here to talk about it.
Well, no, happy to have you. And I want to make a quick distinction about why are we being careful with our words here when we say professional investigator versus private investigator. I think private investigators get a bad rap when it comes to just how they are perceived, right? When people think of private investigators, they immediately think of your domestic issues, right? Your custody battles, the cheating spouse, all that. And not to say that isn't a worthwhile pursuit, and that it can be a valuable service, right? But Sally's practice predominantly doesn't do that. While I'm sure there's at times those cases come through the door, Sally focuses a lot more on the criminal side and on the personal injury side, and of course also on the cases involving survivors of sex assault. But what I'd like to get into, there's a story that I want you to share, Sally, but I want to kind of give some introductory comments to it before we get into it. I think one of the reasons why I think I have kind of opened my eyes to professional investigators and the value is not just the obvious, which is well, we've got a case and there's information out there that we need to know, and we just don't have it, right? We need someone to go knock on doors, do the digging, do the interviews to find it, and to hopefully get that information to add value, to add support to our case, right? But on the flip side, there's also significant value when you can hire someone like Sally who can go out there and find information that, guess what, doesn't support your case. In fact, does the opposite. And in fact says, you know what, like, you don't have what you think you have here. And hey, lawyer, you may not want to spend the next 18 months pursuing this case because the evidence is just not there, right? And so, Sally, you and I were talking before we started this episode, and you'd reminded me of a story you told me a while back in which you assisted a client or a lawyer, and then their client save, and correct me if I'm wrong, but $9.5 million.
Yes, that was the number.
And I'm assuming that was you didn't go and charge them $9.5 million. You didn't. So
No, I charged them even less than I'm making now. It was several years ago, and I was I didn't even want the money. I was so thrilled that all the work I did for almost a year resulted in that for the client. It was thrilling.
Can you set the stage for us?
It was a civil case. Somebody had wrongly accused our client, I'm going to say our client, the attorney's client, of doing something, and it was my job to figure it out. And I was in different states. Took, like I said, almost a year. I interviewed so many people. But the person that gave us the information that really changed everything was hiding, did not want to talk to me. In fact, called the police on me. And I got in there and convinced her to speak with me. She met me in a swimming pool parking lot super early in the morning and talked to me for an hour and a half. And the information she gave me was absolutely critical and saved the client $9.5 million. So that was pretty fun.
What was it to finally get that person to come meet you in that swimming pool parking lot?
It's funny I'm remembering now. I was driving around a different state, which I won't mention, and she was not looking like she was going to talk to me at all. So I went on to try to get in touch with a different witness. So I was actually 5 hours away from where the witness that did speak with me was living at the time. And she called me and she said she would meet me at this swimming pool parking lot early in the morning. And I was 5 hours away. And you don't say no. You don't say, well, could we do it? If she said that, I said, okay, I'll be there. So I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was the first person. I was staying in a crappy hotel. And I was the first person to take a shower. And it was a freezing cold shower. And I said to the front desk person, I didn't have any hot water. And he said, oh, yeah, well, we don't usually know until the first person comes down and tells us if we have a hot water issue. So anyway, I got up at 3 in the morning, took a freezing cold shower, and I kept telling myself, you're going to do this. You're not giving up. I drove the 5 hours. I got to her, talked to her. It was like everything I had waited for, and I couldn't wait to call the attorney.
Take us there. So you're in the car. You're driving the 5 hours. Mm-hmm. You get there. What's going through your head when you pull into that parking lot?
I hope she really shows. I hope I didn't just drive 5 hours and take that cold shower for her to tell me she's going to be here and then she's not going to be here.
You're sitting in the parking lot. Tell us what you see.
Nobody's there. And all of a sudden this car pulls up and then she gets out and she gets in my car and she talks to me for an hour and a half after I had been hounding her. It was just like, okay, it's happening. I did it. I find so often that when you continually try, people talk to you.
Why?
I don't know. I think people give up too soon. I never give up. I don't give up until the person says, do not call this number again. Once somebody says that, it's illegal for me to reach out to them. Then I'm stalking them, right? So until somebody literally makes it illegal for me to reach out to them, I don't stop. But I try not to be so annoying that you would do that. I try to time my reach outs, get maybe your friend to tell you that I'd like to talk to you, or get your relative to tell you I'd like to talk to you, and not so often that you're like, this lady's crazy, but just often enough so that I'm not going to stop trying.
It's more than that, though. Let me push you on this. It's not just getting them to respond, but you have a way, at least in working with you, that you have a disarming way about you that people ultimately, when you are in the same room, they're willing to not just answer your questions in 5 minutes and walk out, but they're willing to actually talk to you and give you information. How does that happen?
I love people. I really, really love all people. And I genuinely want to hear people tell me anything. I mean, I look at people in the eye because I want to connect. And it's not fake. So that might help people want to talk to me.
Yeah. What is it? I mean, when you are sitting, so let's go back to this case. You're sitting in the car, your car, right? She pulls in, you see her. I'm sure there's some sense of relief of like, yikes, that cold shower, that 5 hours wasn't for nothing.
Right.
She gets in your car. If we're sitting there, what happens? Like, how does it even start? I mean, how do you prompt it? Do you say anything, or does she just start talking to you? Do you listen?
She knows what I want to know to some extent. And I just, the thing that I start with every time is thank you. A lot of investigators say that you have to build rapport. And it's like, I'm not going to sit there and say, so do you like the Cardinals? Or I like your purse, or you know what I mean? It's just like, I just start thanking them. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you being here. I mean it. It's not fake. And so just gratitude. And then, ask the question and then just listen, truly listen and look at them. And people want to talk. They have something that's in them. They say they don't want to talk about it, but it's in them. It's hard for them not to tell it to somebody who truly wants to hear it.
When you say listen, and I recognize I'm really digging deep here, what do you mean by listen? What does that look like? And I ask that, and why do I ask it? Because I think listening, what I've learned, is one of the hardest things we as human beings attempt to do every day. And so often do we fall short, right? Like, I mean, to take it to the trial lawyer, when people ask me like, well, what is a jury selection? Well, jury selection is asking questions that you care to get the answer for. And when you do get the answer, you actually listen to the answer. Right. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that is jury selection. Right. I mean, as simplified as that sounds, that is it. Right. And it's the listening, which is actually not easy because so many of us, and I'm sure I'm guilty of it even here in this room today with the podcast, there are going to be times where I'm like, all right, you're saying something, but I got to think about something to ask you next. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If we're true, how does one truly listen? Because you can tell when you're talking to somebody and they're either there and they're with you, they're connected, or they're just waiting to get ready to say what they want you to hear.
It's very true. I also am thinking about other things while people are talking. I have to force myself not to. I'll just say it. I pray to God to help me be a vessel to hear what people have to say. And it takes away the nerves when I pray and say, please help me to just be there, listen. I had to do it today for this podcast because I'm trying to think of all these things that you might ask me. And it's like, you know what? Just listen to the question, just be in the moment, and just be in the podcast. If I start getting nervous or second guessing what I'm thinking, it's not going to sound good and I'm not going to be real. Every morning before I open my eyes, I have a very long prayer. And one of the parts of it is, move my ego over to the side so that God can work through me. And so any difficult thing that I have to do, which would be talk to a witness a reluctant witness, I just try to actually ask God's help and then sit there and open up and don't interrupt and be extremely grateful and say that I'm grateful for their time. And hopefully they'll feel that it's genuine and I'll get the information I'm looking for.
Well, and it works.
It works
It
for me.
really works. How? So you've been doing this for a few years now. The development, like coming to that understanding, right? Like how have you worked to get better and better and better at this craft?
I go to every training possible. I have 2 more trainings coming up. I love training. At first, I did all the things because I wanted to be, investigating was new to me, and I didn't really know what I would be good at. But I quickly became good at interviewing. And so once I started in that direction, I just started looking for every interviewing class I could take. And I've taken several. I love them. I'm never bored on the subject, and I'm just going to continue to get trained.
I think I can relate in the sense that I love the nerdy trial lawyer stuff. I mean, yikes, we have a podcast on trial work, right? So guilty as charged. And when you find something that you love, these trainings, they don't become impositions. They become kind of fun activities, which is kind of crazy, right? So I've heard that a lot. Interviewing is a skill set in and of itself. There are, and I will be, and if I'm being candid, I'm sure there are times in my career where I'm like, well, why do I need to hire an investigator for this, right? Like, I just need to interview somebody. And what I've come to learn is like interviewing itself is a whole, especially for a critical witness, and especially if we're thinking, man, like the substance we might get from this person is something that may end up in a courtroom, right? If we're going to do this the right way, that means bring somebody who's trained and who we can call as a witness at trial. To the naysayers out there who say, it's just an interview. Like anyone can do that. What do you tell them?
I mean, you're the attorneys, so you have to answer this question, but it seems to me that almost every single case you would need an investigator get out there and ask a couple people some very serious questions, and they're going to be extremely helpful to your case. The answers are one way or another, good or bad for your client, right? You want to find them out. You want to find them out. You don't want to find them out because the other side did their job, right?
Really good point. And actually, our team, we had one of our trial teams, we had our monthly trial litigation pod meeting yesterday. And there was actually a point in time where it came up where it's like, hey, well, we haven't gotten to this stage of the case where we need witnesses. And I was like, wait. Why are we going to wait to figure out our witnesses, right? Case comes in the door. Who knows? Let's just say hypothetically, the incident, whatever it is, happened a few months prior. All right, well, we've already lost a few months, right? We don't. Is there still camera footage? We don't know.
Yes.
Right? Is there? Do people still remember? Are we still able to find their contact information?
Yeah.
Because guess what? If we're taking, our firm, we pride ourselves on we are trial first. At the end of the day, if we file the case, you can expect to see us in the courtroom unless you meet the demand that satisfies what our client is looking for, right? Yet to get to trial from the day we get a case very often can be a 12, 18, sometimes 24-month process, and I've had cases that take longer. But if we get to the point where we're waiting until the discovery deadline and we're waiting until the court's asking for our exhibit and witness list, and suddenly then we're looking for our witnesses or looking for additional evidence, right? Like it's too late.
Way too late.
It's too late. And to coming back full circle, kind of how we started, right? There very well could be evidence out there that's going to support our case and make our case more valuable and maybe change the direction in which how we prepare and build our case. And there could also be evidence out there that says, hey, this case, you might need to have a harder conversation with your client because you're eventually, believe it or not, are going to find out some things that you wish you knew a lot earlier.
Yeah.
Right? And so in some respects, there is a good argument that every case that comes in our door could benefit from some level of investigation.
I would think that every single case could. And this isn't even a sales pitch. It's really kind of, I'm surprised that everybody doesn't want to use an investigator right away, because attorneys, now you don't charge, but criminal defense attorneys charge by the hour, right? And they have a really
Or
high
flat rate.
Flat
but
rate.
Yeah.
But their hourly rate is so many times more than mine. And I would think that they could take so many more cases and have me just go and do the work and hand them their case with a bow on it, because I got all the information for them. It seems like they could be more efficient, have more cases, and exactly what you're saying, like get the information early. And with criminal, sometimes you find out, you better not fight this, you better plea, or whatever the attorney wants to tell their client because of the information they get. And the sooner you get it, the better. And it would seem to me, if you waited 18 months to interview a witness for a case that you would have, I would say the other side would say, could they really remember? That would be a problem for you. You would want to get that information sooner so that their memory is correct.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the more we talk about this, the more convinced I am that investigations are just paramount. I mean, I did a lot of criminal work. I guess I was a criminal lawyer for almost 8 years. Mainly, Army, and then I prosecuted here outside of Richmond in Henrico. And I remember when I did the criminal defense work in the Army, how much of a disadvantage I felt like we were at because we didn't have the benefit of criminal investigators. Mm-hmm. To get one hired by the government for our use was not impossible, but certainly not something that was approved quickly. And I remember thinking it was just such a disservice, and found myself without any investigative training, because we don't get it in law school, trying to do it on my own. And what's the inherent issue there? It's, well, if I find something and it ultimately ends up being needed to, at trial, well, guess what? I can't be a witness. No. Or if I am going to be a witness, then I can't continue as the attorney. But I'll give you a kind of a funny story. Well, it's sad, but also funny. But I remember getting a case. It was armed robbery and all this stuff. And it was soldiers accused. And apparently there was a pistol whip and all types of stuff, right? And I was like, yikes, this is serious. And looking through the investigation, and we're like, you know what? This something's off here. So me and one of our paralegals, we went out to the barracks, and we started interviewing people. We started talking to people who were there and all this. And we came to find out that this was nothing more than like a Christmas, like a prank. Like one guy had like taken another guy's Christmas tree, and another guy did something like this. And then we were asking about pistol whipping, and they're like, no, nobody got pistol whipped. And then apparently the guy who was the victim, there was somebody who's standing next to him that the investigators never interviewed. And so we found out so much, and ultimately prevailed on on those charges. But the funny part of the story, also sad, is while all of this was happening, our client tried to escape jail, and he ended up getting convicted of the attempted escape. So the prosecution dropped the attempted robbery and all that stuff. And then I remember I had a case in Egypt, of all places, where we ultimately were able to come to the conclusion that the Army's investigative team just did a really poor job, and we were able to prevail at trial. But my gosh, was it difficult? And was the client at significant risk? Whereas had we had an investigator at our disposal earlier on, maybe they would have found the holes much earlier on, and who knows, maybe we would have been able to avoid having it in a courtroom period. And that applies to personal injury too, right? The more evidence we have that supports our case, well, then guess what? I mean, as much as we love trial work, Mark Lanier has a saying that I've heard him say a few times now: is verdicts feed egos and settlements feed families, right? And so, as much as I love the ego and we all do, if you're willing to go into a courtroom, at the end of the day, if you can position your case for a settlement that satisfies your client's goals because you had the appropriate investigation done early enough in the case to get that evidence, well, then that's a win, right?
Yeah. And again, this is for the attorneys. You can answer this question. I think I've learned that if you don't use an investigator and you lose your case for criminal, they can come back and claim ineffective counsel.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I'm sure the criminal defense lawyers will laugh when they hear that, because there are plenty of people who are in jail who have ineffective assistance of counsel claims.
But
right?
isn't it legit if you didn't get an investigator?
It's not per se. It's not meaning like, it's not like if you don't have an investigator, that's an automatic ineffective assistance. I think it could be used maybe in an analysis for ineffective assistance, but I don't think the law, my understanding at least, is the law isn't that it's mandated. But I couldn't imagine being a criminal defense attorney and not having a strong working relationship with an investigator. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise, what are you doing? You're relying on the police's account of what happened.
Right.
I mean, there's a quote, I think his name's Dean Strang. Remember a number of years ago, there's a bunch of stuff on Netflix. There was that show Making a Murder, or the documentary series. Mm-hmm. I believe it was a case out of, was it Wisconsin or Michigan? I forgot. I remember him talking about like just the use of investigators and just how incredibly important they were. He said, why do we as a society or in a criminal justice system treat the police report like the North Pole, and then we judge everything else based off of the police report? Mm-hmm. And we all do it, right? I mean, even in our world in personal injury, I mean, it's oftentimes, what are the first things we're looking for? We're looking for the police report, and we're just presuming, and with, not to say without, I mean, good reason for so, but we're presuming that what's in there is accurate. And it isn't always accurate.
No, you have to check it.
You have to check it, right? And on to that same point, like when we're dealing with a case in which the police report's wrong, well, getting an insurance company to pivot and to recognize that is quite an obstacle. Mm-hmm. Even getting like the other side, the defense attorney, to see things differently is difficult. So yeah. Anyway, so we're going on and on about just why investigations should be so incredibly important, and I just think they are. But one thing that I don't want to skip over is your path to even become an investigator. Would you be open to going into that?
Yes. It's strange.
It is strange.
Very strange.
But I think it's an important part of your story.
So you want me to just tell it?
Let's do it.
Okay. Only thing I knew how to do is dance since I'm 5 years old.
Say that again?
The only thing I knew how to do was dance.
That's right.
0.
That's not a joke, listeners.
Nothing. And was a professional dancer, taught dance forever, opened a dance studio, had it for 20 years, loved every second of it. My husband was wrongly accused, and our life was flipped upside down. We had to hire 2 attorneys. We had to hire a private investigator, professional investigator. We had to hire a computer forensic expert. My husband was completely exonerated, apologized to in writing from a huge institution. We got a 2-hour meeting with the director of the institution, who apologized and cried. We got a settlement, and we got what most people never get. And my eyes were open to wrongly accused. I became obsessed. It was a strange time, and I became a private investigator. It was actually COVID, so I couldn't get into my dance studio for 6 months at all. And I'm sure I would have never gotten my certification to be a private investigator, because I would have always said I didn't have time. I was running my dance studio. But somebody talked me into it. I did it. I started immediately. I've never looked back. I sold my studio a couple years later. I loved what I did, but this new path has just invigorated me. I can't tell you how much energy I got from. It's like I achieved all the goals I wanted to achieve as dance. You know, I always wanted to have my own dance studio, and then I did, and I had so many successful students who had professional careers, and I was just I thought that there was nothing more to do, really, except continue on the same path, which was nice, but a little boring after you've completed, accomplished your goal. And then I got this bizarre goal out of left field that I never wanted. And it just gave me so much energy. And I had to learn everything from scratch, all the things I never knew. I was nervous a lot, but I was excited a lot. And I love it.
I remember when you and I first met and you shared that story. I think it was in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember kind of, at least one of the takeaways I had was how difficult of a time period that was for you and your husband, and how helpless of a feeling it was for you and your husband. And it reminded me of kind of the different situation, but just of this thing that I think I've come to just accept, is that we don't recognize as a society the importance of our Fifth Amendment rights, for example, or our right to counsel or any of that until it touches us, right? Until it touches us or touches
Yes.
a loved one. We don't recognize the importance of a personal injury lawsuit until it touches us or until it touches a loved one. And I know that sounds unfortunate, right? It sounds like many of us learn the hard way, and many of us do. I'm example number one for most things in life. You can ask my colleagues, you can ask my wife, all that. I'm very good at learning things the hard way. And I remember my revelation was I used to only want to be a criminal prosecutor, and then I remember doing defense work in the Army, and I was like, oh my gosh, there are people who shouldn't be charged with certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you see the power disparity between the government or the investigative entity and the individual, and then when you realize, and you and I have spoken about this, that sometimes people just don't even have the resources to mount, to ultimately find the truth, right? But it's not even just finding the truth. It's also to have the resources to advocate and to get the result. And so my takeaway, at least from the conversation you and I had in Orlando as a reason for you going into professional investigation, was that this isn't just a job for you. Like, this was an eye-opening experience, and you want to help boost the voice of those who have unfortunately had to be in your shoes. And so I don't know. I think you're not giving yourself enough credit in the sense of it's not just an interesting job for you. It's a very purposeful job for you.
I feel full of purpose. You're reminding me that, so public defenders often, with a public defender's case, they get a certain amount that they can apply for an investigator, and it often goes unused, right?
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, do you know that?
I didn't.
Right. So
and actually, the Virginia Indigent Defense Commission, actually, they have their headquarters is an office building over from ours. Sounds like we need to go have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I know they do have some in-house investigators, I think. But yeah,
every public defender for every criminal case should always apply for that investigator amount, whatever they'll give them, and then use it.
Yeah, because that opens up a can of worms with public defenders. There's some incredible lawyers, but it's like everything we have. We don't pay teachers enough. We don't pay our police officers enough, or firefighters, or public defenders, right? Yet we ask them to carry some of the most important responsibilities our society has.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I don't know. But no, Sally, hearing your story and kind of how you and your husband got through that, and then ultimately being able to look back and be like, oh my gosh, and we were only able to do this because we had the resources.
Yes.
Right. And for you to take that and say, hey, dance studio career, the one I've been so successful in, the one I've developed my reputation in, see you later. I'm going to go do this. It's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And I think is emblematic of something I think we're going to talk about in a second. And it's the tenacity that you've shown in starting up your professional investigation practice and getting the results for your clients. One of the things that I know from the podcast is that we like to make sure that our listeners actually leave with something that whether it's a new mindset or a question to consider, or even a practical tool. And I remember you and I were chatting before we got started. I'm like, well, what is that? And it's like the thing that you mentioned was just tenacity. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, like I said to you, you were kind enough not to say it, but I don't think you have to be that intelligent to do my job. You have to be
Or
bright.
mine. I mean,
Yes, you do.
I don't know. I mean,
I think you have to be bright, but what you really need is determination and tenacity and just never give up. That is all it takes to be a really good investigator. And that's the mindset. I never take, they won't talk to us, we won't get that. I just go for it. I don't give up until there's no other avenue tried, done. I just keep plugging away. And that's my strongest skill.
and I bet that, I mean, it doesn't just apply for investigators, right? It's everybody. I mean, right? It's like, I mean, what is, I'm sure there's quotes on this, but like, it's like, at least at our firm, I mean, sure, do we like to hire smart people? Yeah, but if you don't have the work ethic or the drive, then what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, I mean, I think it applies everywhere. But with what you all do, I mean, especially when the police report, like especially in the criminal work, where obviously the police report is not favorable to the attorney's client, right? Like, to be able to go and get that information, I mean, requires a level of resilience I think a lot of people just don't have. But it's, I don't know, it's very cool. But I bet you're also, I mean, on a lighter note, you probably come across some pretty funny kind of stuff you just can't make up.
No, you can't make up my life. I mean, every day the phone calls, everybody calls and says, you're not going to believe what I have to tell you. And it's like, that's how when you call in a private investigator, that the story's crazy. It's never simple and straightforward.
Tell us about that. And actually, wasn't there a case that you'd mentioned, and now I'm having struggling remembering it, where you drove a long ways and there was like a dog or something like that in this house? Yeah, tell us about that.
Okay, that was to find out about a juror. So I do a lot of post trial juror interviews. And some of them have come, one of them in particular came back. First, they set it aside because of what a juror told me. And then they ended up ultimately dismissing the whole thing. And it was a post-conviction. So I went and tried, this was a separate case, had to interview a juror that they thought that the person on the jury had bought drugs from the person who went to jail, and he was a drug dealer, and somebody got killed. And so I was supposed to go out there and find out if this juror actually had bought drugs from him. And that was going to be a game changer. Well, anyway,
It's going to be a huge game changer.
Yeah, I know. I ended up getting in this house. This house was really, I don't know what to say except sketchy. It was a very sketchy home. And I had to just smile and be very comfortable in this home. And then they had this big giant pit bull and I don't hate dogs by any stretch, but I'm not what you'd call a dog person. So I had to.
Well, that's why we're sitting so far apart.
I know.
I love dogs. No,
everybody loves dogs. And I definitely like dogs, but I wouldn't say that I get super excited when I see a dog. So this big giant pit bull is like jumping all over me, and I have to be very charming, and I'm petting the dog, and I finally sit down and the dog's laying on me and breathing on me, and I'm just petting it and smiling and talking. Anyway, the person in the house showed me all around their house, showed me pictures of their family, and it turns out that the person I was trying to find out if they bought drugs from the person has an identical twin. And that identical twin was the one that bought the drugs. So I was able to go back, and it didn't work for the client because it wasn't the person, but her identical twin was the one that was over there buying the drugs. But I wouldn't have known that had I not seen the pictures on the family wall, and if she wasn't so warm and kind to me. But that dog was.
Well, it also wouldn't happen if you weren't willing to make that trip, right? And to put yourself in the situation.
Yeah.
What is it about that? Like, one thing that I've gotten, at times I've been lazy about, is going to the scene. And But when I'm early on it, like I do, like even, I mean,
Why don't you send an investigator to
well,
the
that's
scene?
right. We should be sending investigators
Every
to the
single
scene.
time.
But I even think like, so I tried a case in Texas. What was it? I think it was April of last year. We lost. It's on appeal. It was against Ford Motor Company. It was a 2-week trial. I was down there for about 2.5 weeks. Very difficult case. Really just amazing client, amazing family. But I do remember, I knew it was important that when I got into town to go to where the carbon monoxide poisoning happened, and just to stand there and to feel it, right? And as hippie as that may sound, like I think it helped me, right? I mean, granted, we didn't win the case, but I mean, I think it helped me at least visualize and understand what happened. And that's something that I tell a lot of lawyers. And again, I'm guilty of not necessarily always following that advice myself, but there really is something about going there
Yeah.
and being there. But to your point, I mean, take an investigator with you, or or if you're not going to take the time to do it, then have an investigator go out there and do it. And guess what? Chances are, if you do that, you're going to get better results because the investigator at least knows what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Right? Like they know to canvas. You know how to go knock on doors and get video camera stuff. And we don't know that. We're just making it up.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have a personal injury attorney that I work for on the regular, and he sends me one sentence. Fine, here's what I know, and it's almost nothing. Go find out everything. I run out there. The fresher, the better. And I can get video. I got video camera of this guy walking and a car just zooming up on the sidewalk, and he went flying in the air. His feet were in the air. His hands were in the tires. I mean, it was unbelievable. He was on the sidewalk. But I got there and I got the video footage from the least likely storefront, not the ones that we thought were going to have it. And this person had it all for me. But you have to go there. You have to talk to people. You have to keep asking questions.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's just so important. And they've even found like it's so easy for us, at least as lawyers, to just stay in the office. Even when it comes to like meeting with our clients and meeting with witnesses, there's something about that in-person connection. Hell, that's why, I mean, Sally, you're the one who insisted we got to come do this podcast in person. And I'm glad we did.
I like to be in person.
There's something different about it.
You're right.
What is it?
You know what it is.
It's the ability to connect. Is that it?
I mean, there's energy between us in this room. I'm looking at you. You're right here. We could have done this through Zoom, and that's why I knock on people's door. It's so much harder for them to shut the door in my face than it is to hang up the phone. If I call them and I start talking to them, they'll say, yeah, I'll talk to you. And then they just stop answering their phone. But if I'm looking at them, how hard would it be for you to actually slam the door in my face?
Yeah, that'd be pretty difficult, at least right now. No, I'm joking. But
you know what I mean, though?
No. But you're right. And there's something also about like the connection that you build and the reciprocity during the conversation. It's there's something really powerful about that. So at our firm, we do a witness prep method, which I think is just really, really, really effective. And we're not doing it over the phone. We're not doing it by Zoom. We have our clients come to our office and spend like a whole half day with us. And it's through that in-person connection. And it's through that we, one, get to know them, they get to know us, and we really get to hear their story. You'd mentioned earlier that there's some attorneys you work with on personal injury cases. I'd love for our listeners to get a sense of like, well, just what does that look like when that attorney reaches out to you and says, hey, I got a case, go. Just practically, what does that actually look like? And then and what does the end product look like too?
So a good example of one of those was a motorcycle accident. He didn't know. He knew where it was roughly in the neighborhood. He didn't know. He knew maybe what day it happened, probably what day it happened. But I had to go to the neighborhood and try to figure out from the stores and from the residents and the Ring cameras and just asking a lot of questions. I ultimately got the tow truck company to tell me when they towed the motorcycle. And that narrowed everything down to exactly when it happened and the very corner and streets that it happened at. Then I was able to FOIA 911 calls surrounding that time frame, body-wear camera footage from the police. And my job is just to get, if there's any witnesses, to interview them about what they saw and just get all that and send it back to the attorney. And then he decides whether or not more investigation is necessary.
So from a practical standpoint, it sounds like you're pretty autonomous, right? Like attorney says, "Hey, got a case. I don't know what I don't know. I trust you. Go for it." That's more or less how it works, right? And then you go out and find what you can, and ultimately are able to report back and say, "Hey, here's what I got." Is that typically how the relationship works when you're working with an attorney?
The attorneys are all different.
Tell me about that.
So, first of all, you can't work with somebody like that unless you have built that trust.
Okay.
So, if you consistently bring them good work, they're going to trust you more and more and more and let you do your job. It's interesting. Different attorneys want different things. Some want full formal reports, after an interview, and some want bullet points, highlights, summaries. You just have to really understand what your attorney wants from you and give it to them.
No, and it makes sense. And so, from a work product standpoint, like, more often than not, are you doing a report or are you doing a follow-up? Like, what does that look like?
I always do a report unless they say, we don't want any reports, just send us some bullet points. And I do that in an email. But I have a system of writing a solid report after every interview, and they're very professional.
And how about I'm assuming that some cases have the need for photographs or have the need for maybe some more like kind of online digital investigative work. And I recognize this is not a great question because every case is going to ultimately be different and it's going to lead to different findings. But my understanding from working with you is that as the investigation is going on, you're not only providing updates, but when the investigation concludes, there's a body of work to look at to then put into the case file.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's critical, right? I mean, because ultimately, these case files, especially lawyers who are handling a number of cases, there's a certain point you just can't remember everything. You got to have things documented. And then also, specifically, you have to have the photos, you have to have the videos, because 18 months goes by, and if you don't have them, you're kind of out of luck, right?
Yeah, and even I need to read my own report if by the time it goes to trial and then they want me to testify. I do so many cases, I can't remember exactly how that interview went until I read my own report.
Of course. Now, quick question, but AI, has that had any impact on your work?
I love AI. Okay. I just was at a conference and somebody was trying to sell me AI, and maybe I'll get there, to summarize. So I would get all the information on a case, and then they were telling me that this product would summarize it for me and show me what I needed. And I'm not there yet. I love to read it myself, go through it with my old-fashioned highlighter. I don't trust AI enough to think that they might miss a certain very, very important nugget. So I get a real understanding of a case if I just read it with a fine-tooth comb and then make my notes. But then after I'm all ready, I set up my own investigation plan, my own interview questions. But then I give it to, and of course with no real information, just if I needed to do this or that, to Claude. Claude's my latest. I've gone through them all.
Claude's fantastic.
Claude's really good.
We use Claude every day, all day.
I love it. And I just ask it, okay, here's what I have. This is what I'm planning. What have I forgotten? What should I do that I haven't thought of? And sometimes it gives me good ideas. And you should always check yourself. And it's like a little personal assistant helping me.
About to say, there's no excuse for typos anymore with
No,
AI, right?
I know.
Talk about it being a proofreader. But you know how the person, you're using AI, you see all those M dashes. I don't know what it is. AI and M dashes, they love them. But anyways.
Yeah, you want to keep it real.
You want to keep it real.
But right.
I don't know. One day we're going to get to a point where it's just robots talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Sally, this has been a lot of fun. Before we kind of wrap this up, you know the question that I love asking guests, but if you could go back to when you first started this journey to become a professional investigator, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
I'm still telling myself this, but I'm getting better at it all the time. I just know having to learn all these new things from scratch and wanting so desperately to be good at it, I would get so nervous, so scared, like rush through my body and panicky, really, about learning a new skill. Like, maybe I won't be able to figure this out. And I've become better at it. Just calm down. You can learn this. It will happen. There is a way for you to learn this, and just do it without the anxiety. That would have been more pleasant. But I don't know if that kind of drive and like adrenaline got me going. I can't tell.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah.
You just opened up one of my favorite conversations.
Okay.
Even though I wanted to ask one more question and shut it down, we can't now.
Okay, go ahead.
Anxiety is something I've dealt with, right? And something we all deal with. And everyone has anxiety. And I think a lot of us don't realize that it's actually a tool. Clients all the time, and this happens when we do our witness prep, but they say, "Oh, I'm really nervous," right? And I say, "Well, that's some of the best news I've heard." And they're like, "Well, what do you mean? It's the best news I've heard?" I was like, "Because if you told me you weren't nervous, it means you don't care."
Right.
Right? Like maybe out of a 0 to 10, you're at like a 7 out of 10. Maybe we can provide you some context that maybe brings your anxiety level down to maybe a 4. Mm-hmm. But I hope you have anxiety, because what does anxiety mean? Anxiety means that you care. Right. Anxiety is a natural thing. It means that it's like we have it because we need it to warn us. So when the tigers come after us, we run, right? I'm talking about all the stuff back in the Stone Age. So, I mean, when I hear that from you, Sal, I'm like, to me, it just means it's somebody who's found something that they care about and that they want to do a good job at. And I genuinely believe that, at least for all the trial lawyers listening, that if it gets to the point where you are not nervous before walking in that courtroom, then it's probably time to find a different profession. Mm-hmm. So my understanding with you, Sal, is while that anxiety is probably still there to some extent, it's with all the results that you've gotten, I'm sure it's calmed down a little bit.
It has calmed down.
But that rush, though, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. It can also be something that really helps us pursue something meaningful.
Yes. And so that anxiety, when I would first interview people, I was, like we talked about earlier, listening. I was so anxious that it was like my head I couldn't even hear them because I was so nervous. Now I'm so calm. That's great. But just learning new things, staying calm and trusting that I will be able to learn that thing. And it calms my brain down so that I'm able to learn that new thing instead of just going into that panic mode where I hate that feeling.
Yeah, no one does. Well, Sally, if people want, so you help out attorneys with criminal cases, you help out attorneys with injury cases, and then I know you've also helped out with us other civil cases as well. If people want to learn more about you, maybe potentially work with you, how can they reach you?
Cell phone?
Whatever you prefer.
703-350-2073. The company is called Clear Path Forward. ClearPathForwardPI.com.
I like it. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's a pleasure getting to know you. I'm really grateful to have you as a guest, and I'm hopeful that we can get some cases going with you again here soon.
Thank you. It's really my honor. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to Courtroom Stories and Tactics by RVA Trial Lawyers. Hosted by Sharif Gray and Niall Abuzaki. Please subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or any major podcast platform. Together, we're building a tribe of trial lawyers to remind the world what human life is truly worth, one verdict at a time.